Welcome to the Belzona podcast, your go-to podcast for all things engineering and coatings. I'm Richard Bywater, and today I'm joined by my colleague Hannah Wilkinson.
Hi everybody, thank you for introducing me, Richard. We're both brand new to podcasts. We're very excited about doing this. So thank you all for tuning in for our first episode.
Very excited, yeah. The first ever Belzona podcast, episode 1. Hopefully the first episode of many more to come.
Absolutely.
So yeah, welcome to whoever it might be listening, whether you guys have used Belzona for years and years, or whether you're completely new to maintenance or using polymer technology. We're hoping that over the episodes to come and today's episode that there's going to be something for everybody.
So Richard, do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about Belzona?
Yeah, great. So we mentioned before, for those who have never come across Belzona before, we are a global designer and manufacturer of repair composite materials as well as industrial protective coatings.
So we offer long-lasting quality repair and maintenance solutions, and we'll find a little bit more about that later on in the episode with our special guest who's going to join us.
Absolutely. So as we are doing introductions, Hannah, I think it's only right that we give a bit of an introduction from ourselves. So fire away.
Absolutely, thank you. My name's Hannah Wilkinson. I'm the marketing coordinator here at Belzona in our Harrogate office. I work across a wide range of projects with the marketing team here. You may have seen some of our videos on YouTube or on our social media platforms that we work on. And we also work to support our distributor network across the globe. So Richard, do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about what you do in your role here at Belzona?
Absolutely. As well as being the host for the Belzona podcast, I am Belzona's specification development engineer for our office here in Harrogate. So I'm here to help with the specification process for coatings and a number of other Belzona solutions for new construction projects. So I've been with the company now just over 2 years and very, very excited to be a part of a project such as our new podcast.
Yeah, me too. Very exciting.
So what are we going to be talking about today? I think we'll first kick off with really getting into the reason why we're wanting to do a podcast.
So why we're doing a podcast is we're trying to engage with our customers on a different level and a different platform. So as I mentioned earlier, myself and the marketing team, we work on lots of different projects in different media, printed media, videos. But podcasts have got a really unique quality to them. They're quite informal, have a bit more of a personal connection with the listeners, and it's something you can listen to whilst you're driving, whilst you're cracking on with your work. And it's a great way to get across some topics that we want to discuss with some guests and things that are relevant to you today and in the world today and affect us all in the different industries that we work in.
Cool. Yeah, no, so we really want to kind of share what we do, and we think the podcast format is going to be a great media to do that. It's going to allow us to discuss a number of different current topics and industry issues within the industries that we operate in. And as Hannah said, great way to engage with our customers on a different level. So we're hoping that you're all going to enjoy it. And along the way, the format that we're going to try and adopt, we're going to be joined by some very special guests who are going to share their insight and experiences along with us, but by doing that with you guys, the listeners as well.
So Richard, do you just want to explain to the listeners of how the episodes are going to be set up for the podcast?
Absolutely. So we're going to tackle a different topic each episode. As mentioned before, we're going to include special guests who are going to input their personal and professional experiences to try and put across the real issues, problems and solutions on these topics. And I think on the first few episodes, it's more about giving you guys as listeners an introduction to Belzona and the background of as us as a company.
Yeah, so we'd like to go in depth into what goes into our products and the research side, the quality, and how we've got to where we are today, almost 70 years later after being founded back in the 50s. So we want to draw on our wealth of experience that we've got within the field and some of the people we've worked with over the years and give that to you as the listeners, and hopefully you can learn something from it in the future episodes to come. So what do you want people to take from the podcast?
Well, we want our listeners to ideally learn something, whether you're a new user or an existing customer. We're going to be discussing current, relevant issues ranging over a wide variety of different industries. And we're going to be talking about solutions to problems and the processes behind them, all along with very interesting opinions and insight from industry experts. What if you're already a Belzona user? What are you going to get from the podcast? Hopefully you can learn something new that you didn't already know about Belzona. We are going to discuss relevant issues regarding the industries that we operate in. And we're going to be talking about solutions to problems and processes behind them rather than the types of product that we sell.
So we want to have some interaction. Like I mentioned earlier, we're hopefully going to get some of your input for future episodes. And we want to just have a bit of fun, really. On an informal, personal level.
So now we move on to the main feature of today's episode, which is our special guest. So something I in particular are very, very excited about. We would like to introduce all the way from sunny Miami, our special guest for today's podcast. So welcome, CEO of Belzona International, president of the Belzona Group. There are many titles, Joel. I'm sure you'll tell us which one you prefer. But Mr. Joel Svendsen.
Hey, good morning. Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
Good morning. Yeah, so it's a morning for you over there in Miami. We just explain, myself and Hannah over here are in less sunny England, in Harrogate, but you have the benefit of being in a more tropical climate.
Yes, indeed.
Well, no, thank you very much for agreeing to be on. I think what we're trying to achieve in today's conversation, with this being episode 1 of the Belzona podcast, the introductory episode, if you like, we're hoping to discuss the history and general experience of Belzona. So we thought who'd be the best person to get on to speak about that, and top of the list, your name came up, Joel, Mr. Svendsen. So
thank you.
Thank you very much for being here.
For everyone listening today, Joel, if someone who has never heard of Belzona before, if they were sat here, how would you describe what Belzona does?
Well, describing Belzona has sometimes been a challenge, and a number of years back, we decided to simplify it, to make it easier for people to understand, and that's where the repair, protect, improve comes from. And the idea being that the elevator story for Belzona is that we repair, protect, and improve machinery, equipment, buildings, and structures. And it's kind of necessary to have that simple explanation because we do so many things. We're in so many different industries. We have such a broad product line that I think that pretty much encompasses everything that we do.
Great. So that's what most people have probably seen on our strapline, if anyone's seen the Belzona logo before. Repair, protect, improve.
So where did all this start then?
Right. Well, originally the idea came from my father was working with a friend of his at a company called New Swift, which made fire extinguishers, and the fire extinguishers back in the day, they were made out of steel. And they would fill them with water, and then they would add like some CO2 gas and stuff to pressurize the fire extinguishers. And they had a huge problem with the fire extinguishers rusting, because obviously you have this pressurized container. It's got water in there. It's made out of steel. It's a great environment for corrosion. And they lived a very short life. They'd make these fire extinguishers, and they were kind of, even though you could refill the fire extinguisher, it was kind of a disposable item because after a number of years, the steel would rust through, and obviously it's pressurized, so you'd have a pressurized leak and lose the fire extinguisher and make a big mess. And so they were studying how can we prevent these fire extinguishers from corroding, and we already knew at this point about zinc anodes. But the thought was, well, instead of having an anode, couldn't we make a zinc paint that we could paint on the fire extinguishers to prevent the corrosion? And this was kind of a technical challenge at the time. So instead they used flame spraying, where you take a rod of zinc and you put it through a flame, and it sort of atomizes the zinc, and it gets sprayed onto the metal surface, and that prevents the corrosion. But my father was really intrigued by the idea of making a paint, so he went and set up the original Belzona company, which was called Metalife, and hired some chemists, and they got together and figured out a way to formulate the first effective zinc paint, which was the Metalife product. And this sort of was the origin of a long fascination with corrosion for my father, that he said, well, corrosion's everywhere. Everywhere you go, you see the loss of resources to corrosion. And so from the original zinc paint, he thought, well, we don't only want to protect things that are going to corrode. We want to repair things that have already corroded, if you will. Yeah. And that's what led to the super metal, the 1111, which is so now you have not just a coating grade, but a filling grade that you could fill corroded steel and rebuild it, and then coat it with another Belzona product to protect it in the future. So that was the first two: the repair and the protect. And then the improve came much later, when we started talking about I think that originally it was in the energy conservation field with Super Metal Glide that we said, we can make things better through Belzona products, and we see that we often now, as the Belzona coatings have gotten more advanced, we can provide a much higher degree of protection to a variety of chemicals and environmental conditions than you could do with just base construction material. So you can wind up with something which is improved from its original state, not just protected or repaired.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I'd never heard that particular story before. So it's your father, when he started the company, it was quite a while ago now. Is it back in the 50s? Yeah,
the company was founded in 1952.
Okay, and it's quite local here in the UK, I believe. It wasn't. Now we have our base here in Harrogate, but it was just down the road in Elland, was it?
That's correct. Yes.
But no, really interesting to hear that it was. And correct me if I misheard that there. Your father was a separate company, and corrosion was an issue, and he decided to then go and create a solution for that, and that was the formation of Metalife, but which is now Belzona.
That's absolutely right. Yes. So he was initially like a supplier to New Swift and provided their corrosion solutions, and then expanded and provided solutions to companies throughout industry.
Fantastic.
It's an amazing journey that the company, your father and yourself, have come on over the years. I know that the 70th anniversary is coming up very, very soon. Can you believe that it's almost got to 70 years since Belzona was founded?
I know, it is kind of amazing. It makes me feel a little old sometimes. I remember the 25th anniversary. It doesn't seem like all that long ago. I was a child at the time, but I remember all the signs and stuff for that. So yes, it goes by quickly.
Yeah. So you spoke about Belzona being applicable to a broad range of industries there. What industries do you believe are Belzona key industries, and where over the years have you seen Belzona really make a name for ourselves?
Well, I think traditionally the biggest market for Belzona has been heavy industry. And I know not everybody uses the term heavy industry in all countries, but essentially heavy industry is like your power industry, energy industry, your mineral extraction industry. These are the people that are doing heavy duty work, if you will. Yeah. And so that's a natural place for Belzona materials, because that's where you see a lot of temperature, a lot of chemicals, a lot of abrasion, a lot of issues. So that's been the biggest area for Belzona, but because our product line is very diverse, we've sold into pretty much all industries over the years.
And as the kind of development over the years, where do you kind of see the potential for the future in emerging industries like renewables, for example?
Well, certainly. I mean, there's certainly a big shift. I think that it's very clear to us that while petroleum will forever be around, it's a critical component for plastics and certain forms of transport. It's particularly useful, but there is a move towards renewables. I think battery technology is increasingly important, and also on the power generation side, wind and solar are they will probably not totally replace traditional energy sources, but they will continue to grow. So I think that it's important that that Belzona offers solutions to those industries, solutions that are tailored to those industries specifically. And we've already seen this very much in the wind industry already, and we have some ongoing projects for the solar industry that we're working on.
Absolutely.
It's great to see that adaptability from Belzona and that real expansion of the range across the different industries. It really shows how forward-thinking the company is as well. Looking forward to those new renewables, as well as maintaining the core, like you say, those core energy sources that we all rely on as well.
Belzona has always invested very heavily in R&D. And I think that's one of the differentiators between us and the competitors. We used to not call them competitors; we used to call them imitators. And it was not without reason, because I think for much of our history, Belzona was pretty much the first company to introduce a material in a product class. We were the pioneers. We did the original R&D. We did the original product, and then the other players would kind of, once we had something figured out, would try to copy it. Belzona has been and remains the key innovator in the industry, and it's because we invest much more heavily in R&D than the other players in this space.
Yeah. So I know we kind of spoke about where it all started. And we just mentioned the product range there. It all kicked off with this corrosion zinc-based paint, but how have you seen the product range develop over time? So, for instance, I know Belzona 1111 was one of the first products that came in. And we've constantly kind of built on that experience to fit different application scenarios.
Yeah, I think we started off kind of going substrate by substrate, if you will. So we started with steel and came up with coating and rebuilding grades of materials for steel, and then we moved on to say, okay, well, concrete is very important, and that's where the Magma range of products came from. The 4000 series products came from, and then indeed the 5811, which is the immersion grade material, was originally a tank intended as a tank coating material for sort of steel tanks. And that has evolved over the years increasingly into a containment area, or bund coating, as they're called in the UK, and that's why we're taking the opportunity to introduce the containment grade material. So we have which is 5811 immersion grade, tweaked and optimized for this containment area use, which is an increasingly common application area for it. And same thing we've done, the rubber, for the rubber, or elastomers, as they like to say now. For elastomers, we have elastomeric materials and roofing materials in the 3000 series, and that pretty much covers most of the substrates. The one that we really haven't done too much until now is glass, because generally speaking, a lot of the things that glass is used for, you don't need glass. You just need something that's highly chemical resistant. It's normal use in industry. But of course, in the solar field, you do need something that is transparent.
Yes.
So that is leading to a new range of materials for the solar market, where they have to have perfect transparency to give us is a key property for those materials.
Yeah.
So there's so many amazing products that you've already mentioned, and as we can see, the range has really grown over the past 60 plus years. If you had to choose a favorite product, what would it be?
It's very easy. For me, it's 1212.
Okay.
And because 1212 is, I think that 1111 super metal was the first really magical product from Belzona, in the sense that I don't think anybody had really seen a kind of paste material that converted into something that was like steel after it cured, that you could build things out of, you could rebuild things out of. That was a revolutionary product in its day. And 1212 is probably the best introduction to Belzona, because unlike Level 11, it's a 1-to-1 mixing ratio. So it's really, really easy for somebody who's using Belzona products for the first time to work with. It cures quickly, but not too quickly. So you can. So again, for a first-time Belzona user, they have enough time to get it to get it in place and to finish the job. But it cures rapidly, and you can go back into service rapidly. And then 1212 has, of course, it's surface tolerant. So if you have a not perfectly prepared surface, maybe it's a little damp, maybe there's a little oil on there, the surface prep isn't all that you would like it to be, you can still often get a good result for 1212. So to me, it's your great first product to experiment with from Belzona. I think it's kind of the most magical product because it kind of does everything. And it's perfectly tuned for its job.
Magical's the key word there. I bet at the time when 1111 was first developed, I bet people thought it was magic with this thing that repairs steel and almost feels like steel when it's cured. Amazing. Richard, what's your favourite product? Whilst we're on the topic of favourite products.
My favourite product, I'd have to go with our new LEP coating for the blades of wind turbines, Belzona 5721. I think just it only came out last year, but I've spent a lot of time over the past 12 months promoting it, and no, it's a very, very exciting product. So for that reason, I'd have to say that. What about yourself, Hannah?
Tough one. I think I'd go for Belzona 1818. It's very newly launched this year, abrasion-resistant product, and it's a beautiful shade of blue, which actually has its benefits in the field as well. No, I'm not just picking it for its aesthetic value. It means when people have done these repairs, they can see where they are very easily. So it does have a practical benefit as well.
My father used to annoy the R&D chemists back in the day, and he would tell them, it doesn't look exciting enough. Can't you put a little gold flake or something in it just to hot it up a bit? So,
no, it is a gorgeous shade of blue.
Yeah, and from a marketing point of view, that's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there we go. Okay, so Belzona typically isn't sold in traditional shops and stores. We tend to take a unique approach to selling the Belzona solutions through a global distribution network. So what led the company to take this approach, and what are the major benefits that selling this way gives to an end user?
Well, to understand Belzona, you have to understand that we are a knowledge company as much as a product company. People have problems in industry, and they don't know how to fix it. So it's not like they're calling up saying, saying that I need this product. They call up saying, I have a problem. Do you guys have a fix for us? And so that is really a model that it lends itself to. You have to have local people. You have to have people that can go out and take a look at what's going on, speak to the people involved, understand why there's a problem occurring, and then figure out what's the right solution for them. And that follows through into the application also, because as we know, your application will only be successful if it's done correctly with the right procedures. And there needs to be people in the field that can make sure that things are done properly, so as that you have a successful outcome. So that really that's driven us in the direction of, we know we have to have independent distributors throughout the world. We have to make sure that we have consultants throughout the world that can go out and visit customers and take a look at their problems and devise solutions for them and make sure that the repairs are done correctly.
Another benefit of the global distribution network, from my experience as well, is it's really made Belzona a global company, just through the sheer numbers of local, regionally based companies that sell and offer these services. I think it's quite a large figure. The one I know is 140 different distributors over 120 different countries.
Yeah, that's right, and because it's really important that wherever somebody has a Belzona problem, that we make sure that we have somebody local that can get in there, and help them. I mean, we're in almost every country of the world. We periodically have a sit down and we're looking at little tiny islands and tiny little territories with a few thousand people, trying to say, well, do we have a distributor in there? Do we have that territory covered? That's kind of the level we're at now, that we have provided such good coverage throughout the world that there's only tiny pieces that's still missing coverage right now.
Yeah, there's not many of them for sure.
And that's brilliant. Even the smallest countries in the world, they'll have machinery, they'll have equipment, buildings, structures that'll need repairing at some point. It's just natural over time. So it's great to see Belzona in so many countries providing that local support as well. So over the years, Belzona as a company, I've seen have done some very exciting promotional events. So I've heard about the car lift. That's a big one. I've heard about the strongman pull. What's your most memorable promotional stunt that Belzona have done, Joel, over the years?
Oh, for me, I think it was the car lift, and because it's we hear these numbers bandied about all the time that it's got 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 psi of adhesion, and somehow you don't realize just from that number like how much that really is until you see here's a square inch of Belzona product, and then you pick up a car with that tiny little postage stamp size size of material. It makes you realize just how strong the adhesion of the Belzona products is. And adhesion is a property that we focus on because it's important even in applications where you think, I'm not lifting something with it, but really high adhesion means that the product is bonded tenaciously to the substrate, and that means that if it's a coating, for example, that is a coating that's not going to want to come off, and it's going to provide you long-term corrosion protection.
Yeah. For anybody who's hasn't seen this, and I would highly recommend going on our YouTube channel and looking at this, because we have the thing videoed. This was where we did a bond with. Can you remember what product it was, Joel?
I think it was a heat activated material, because we wanted to do it quickly. We bonded it and heated it and lifted it pretty soon afterwards.
So we took, and again, this is another question. We basically bonded a car to a crane, lifted it up, and then pushed it out over another car. And these aren't old, not nice, cheap cars either. Was this your car, Joel?
Yeah, they were two of our cars, because we knew it would work. We didn't have any real worry about it. So
that's confidence.
Definitely want to check out on YouTube.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so for our kind of final question then, and I think this is a good way to sum up our conversation. Currently, while we're recording this, we are in the middle of this COVID pandemic. So in this time of uncertainty, what are your hopes and expectations for the future?
Well, I think that any kind of dramatic thing, be it a war or a pandemic, or it tends to accelerate changes that were already going to happen. It's kind of unfortunate that's the way it happens, but it does accelerate the pace of progress. And I think that from a Belzona perspective, the applications are all still out there. The needs are all still out there, but technology is only going to play a bigger role. We talked earlier about that you got to get people on site to look at stuff, and that's still true. But maybe they have to be on site virtually. People have to go and look at things, carry your phone out, and to have a live conference with somebody in the field. Yeah. And I think that Belzona's particular particularly well placed for this because Belzona has really pushed technology very, very hard for a very long time. And so if you're holding us up against our competitors, they don't have anywhere near the technology infrastructure we do. So for us, getting set up to a more virtual world and all these Microsoft Teams meetings and all these things, for us it came really easily because we were already set up. And so I think, if anything, it is a positive for us as a business.
Fantastic. I think I'd just like to say thank you very much, Joel, for agreeing to join us today. I think that about wraps it up for episode 1 of the Belzona podcast. For everyone listening, we hope you've enjoyed today's episode and Belzona's first outing within the podcast world. Please don't forget to like or subscribe so you don't miss out on any Belzona future content. I'd like to thank Mr. Joel Svendsen for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolute pleasure. Also, thank you to Hannah for being my co-host today. Thank you, Hannah.
You're welcome. Thank you, Joel, as well.
So until next time, goodbye.
Take care.